Kay Whitt, designer for Serendipity Studio, and today I'm going to be sharing with you one of my very favorite design elements in a lot of my patterns, and it's an adjustable waistband. Now there's a lot of reasons why I love the adjustable waistband. Number one, let's say you went out and had a really big dinner and you need just a little more breathing room. It's easy to adjust that, whether or not you use the drawstring option or the elastic. The other thing that I love about it is that none of us are created equal. Some are high-waisted, some are low-waisted, and by simply adding or taking away from the bodice, you can make this waistband anywhere you want it. And the other thing is that it's wonderful for beginning sewers. So those of you who hate the zipper, these dresses don't have any zippers at all. They pull over the head and then you pull up the drawstring or enjoy your elastic waistband. So I've got one here on the table that I want to show you. This is an actual different piece of fabric that goes between the bodice and the skirt. And I like to offset my openings for the drawstring. So I've got these off to the side, but certainly you can put your buttonholes anywhere you want. So you can put them in the center, or you can put them on the right, or even on the side if that's what you wanted to do. So you can see how easy it adjusts and pulls up. And you just base it on, what I like to do is just loosen it up, put the dress on, and then tie it however tight I want to wear it. So if you don't want to do a drawstring though, you can, when you do the side seam for one of the sets of waistbands, you can leave yourself a little opening and insert your elastic that way and skip the buttonholes altogether. So today I brought some samples with me of different designs. I'm wearing one that has an adjustable waist on it today, and this one is made out of rayon, so it's super comfortable and lightweight, wonderful for warm weather, just very cool and flowy and comfortable. This one is a cotton voile, and you can see here that I've centered the waistband on this one, the openings. This one has the opening on the side. And this one's a high-low tunic, so it looks great with leggings. And it's also cotton voile. And this one is a rayon, and it also has the waistband. So I've featured that here in just different designs so you can see how it looks with different applications. Now the dress on the table is cotton, so you can see how this kind of design lends itself to a variety of different types of fabrics. So let's get started. I've got my waistbands here, and one of the first things that we're going to do is make the buttonhole. So I've already marked this particular front waistband. You can see here that I've marked the centers, and then I have marked the center of one side, and I've also measured and marked for my buttonholes so that we're ready to stitch. And one thing that you do need to remember when you're doing buttonholes is to reinforce your fabric so that your fabric does not rip when you pull up your drawstring. So I've just cut out a little square of lightweight fusible interfacing and added that to the back. So we're ready to go ahead and stitch these buttonholes now. This one I'm going to line up my mark with this lower point, and then the machine will do the rest of the work. So I'm going to come in and lower my presser foot and then line up my mark right with those 3 red marks on the buttonhole foot so that it starts in the right spot, and then the rest the machine will take care of. Now it's going down the other side. You have to love technology when you get a beautiful buttonhole and all you had to do is just make a few marks. And there's one of our buttonholes. Now I would repeat that here, and that way I'll have both openings for my drawstring. So we're going to leave this one over here and come back over to the table. And I've already got 2 sets. Now I have to have 2 sets of waistbands because I have to have an inner one and an outer one, because what I'm going to do is sandwich the lower edge of this bodice at one point. So this one already has my buttonholes. Remember to cut those open. I have forgotten, and it's a little tricky once you get the dress put together to have to cut those open. And then I have a set that doesn't have any buttonholes at all, because the one on the inside doesn't need that. These are already put right sides together. I know which is my top because those are notched. That will be the ones that will go with the lower edge of the bodice. So we're going to go over to the serger now and serge these side seams. I'm using a 1/2 inch seam allowance for this particular sewing. I'm going to remove my pin so I don't damage the blades of my serger. I'm going to line up with my 1/2 inch seam allowance. I've got 1 down and 3 to go. Okay, number 3. And notice just how I use my blades to cut my serger threads. It's just quick that way. I don't worry about the tails. Once I've sewn my seams, those will all go away at that point anyway. So now we're going to go over to the ironing board and iron the seams. We're going to press those to one side. It's always important to remember to press between each step of sewing so that by the time you're finished, you get a beautifully finished garment. Never underestimate the power of your iron and what it can do for you. Okay, now the next part we've got here is maybe one of the trickier parts. It's easy, you just have to pay attention to what you're doing. So I've got my waistband that's going to face the outside with my buttonholes, and I've got the one that's going to be on the inside. And here is my bodice, and I'm going to be pinning this one to the lower edge so that it's like that when it's finished. So I've got to turn this one so that I've got right sides together. Notice how I have notched my centers on my waistband. That way I can just match it up super fast and be ready to sew. I'm matching these notches up to either side pretty much. You know, sometimes I don't always clip perfectly when I cut my pattern pieces out, but I don't worry too much about that. It's these side seams that are important. We want those to match. And we'll match the center back. Okay, now you can stop at this point and add this one and then add the inside one. I like to cut a step out and do them both at the same time. So this one stays right side out. This is the top edge. Remember, that's the notched one. So I'm going to slip it inside. And line everything back up. So that's my center back. Notice how I've got waistband, bodice, waistband. Why do I have this one turned this way? Because I'm going to turn it out away from the bodice once it's pressed, once it's sewn, when I go to press it. And that way I encase that inside seam and I've got a nice, neat finish on the inside of my dress, which is one of the reasons why I really love this, this method. And it looks nice. You can make it from a contrasting fabric like I'm doing today, or like the one I have on the table is the same fabric. So you can either make it stand out and contrast. Okay, I think I'm good to go now. Going to go ahead and use the free arm on the machine. But first I'm going to have to change my foot out and get the machine back into regular stitch mode here. We're going to do a 1/2 inch seam allowance this time. And it really doesn't matter where you start. You can start at the side seam or anywhere in the middle. Doesn't make any difference. So we'll start, make sure you're going to line up on a 1/2 inch. And we'll start stitching. Okay, and we're back to the beginning. Back stitch. And cut threads. And we're going to go back to the ironing board now and press. Let's remove all of our pins. I don't worry too much about the seam allowance here. It's going to be up inside. So let's take it over to the ironing board. I'm going to slip it on, and the first thing I'm going to do is open that out. Notice my seam is opened out toward the waistband. We'll just keep working our way around, opening both of those halves out away from the bodice, and we're almost there. Now it might be necessary to check the back side. Yes, see, I need to make sure that that seam is nice and smooth. Okay, now the next step, I would stitch these layers together with just like a 1/4 inch. And then we have a perfectly encased waistband, and we're ready to attach the skirt. So that's how you can add an adjustable waistband to a dress.